I'm Manveen Rana, Innovations Editor here at Hub Culture, Davos 2024. I'm delighted to be joined by Maurice Ostro from YPO. Welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Oh, well, it's a pleasure that you could attend. You're talking quite a lot about social cohesion. It's one of the big things that you look at. And there are so many subjects being discussed here at Davos which will directly influence the way social cohesion plays out elsewhere. One of the big issues looming over this particular meeting at Davos has been geopolitics. It's been the crisis in the Middle East. What are you seeing in terms of that and social cohesion and some of the businesses that you deal with?
So our organization has 35,000 members in 145 countries, all CEOs, and for the most part, CEOs don't tend to want to get that involved in politics. It's very problematic dealing with issues within your own organizations, let alone in your community. So we have YPO members with companies who are on both sides of this Middle East conflict. We know there is a resurgent anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, and in companies you have colleagues sitting side by side with very opposing views, and this has absolutely impacted their relationships. So there is an internal facing issue for CEOs generally, but there's also an external opportunity because we hear a lot of the more extreme voices whenever the media focuses on any issue, and the geopolitics of the moment clearly are headline news. So that is going to create an impression about how people think in respect to any subject. And what we need to do as a business community is to strengthen those moderate voices. And we can't do it by ignoring it. We have to be more vocal. And that's a very difficult position for many CEOs to grapple with because both internally and externally, this is not their expertise. And so we need to just start that conversation and try to help guide our colleagues and generally those in business and industry to get involved in these issues rather than to shy away from them.
Yeah, so you really want business to be the voice of moderation in this debate. But as you say, most business leaders want to avoid anything that might look political. How do you encourage them to overcome that?
It's very difficult to navigate, and you cannot be prescriptive, and particularly not with a very wide variety of industries and size of businesses and types of businesses. You have to allow people to see what works, what suits their organization, what suits them as people running organizations whose primary objective are economic objectives. They're not geopolitical ones.
Yeah.
And so all one can do is just encourage conversation in doing it in a safe space. We have a very interesting format within the Young Presidents Organization. It's been going now for about 50 years, this format. It's called Forum. So we take between 8 and 12 people of our colleagues and make it very confidential in a very safe space and give them sort of rules and guidance as to how you can engage with one another as equals and listen and hear one another's issues without being judgmental and shutting down conversation. So there is a process, and some of us are trying to encourage that kind of process outside our own framework of YPO, but just generally in the business world.
Yeah. And one of the other issues that's being discussed here at Davos this week, and is again going to have a big impact on social cohesion all over the world really, is AI and how it might affect the workforce of the future, whether we'll sort of see mass unemployment and how that plays out. Is that something that you're worrying about?
It affects every business. There are two levels of concern. One is the companies themselves, who are going to be affected in a significant way, the employees within those organizations as well as the organizations themselves. But I'm also concerned about the wider impact on society, not just for those at the upper end of the economic ladder, but those at the bottom for whom they fear a lot of those call center jobs, a lot of the areas where there's a lot of employment might be seriously undermined, and how that plays into what we were just talking about in terms of the destabilizing of society when you suddenly have people fearful for their economic well-being as well as their safety. So these are all issues that play into one another.
Is that something you need governments to be thinking about much more and planning for because we know it's coming? Or is this another place where businesses can get together and try and sort of collaborate on potential solutions or sort of reskilling programs?
And so in England, we've had the creation under previous Prime Minister of the Business Action Council, where we bring together the business representative organisations to try and see where there are areas of collaboration where we as businesses can suggest things to government, get government support. Government is not necessarily the best place for innovation and for fast reaction to issues because of the way it's structured, the bureaucracy, the need to have cross-departmental conversations about these major issues, and they take time. So business can be more nimble and hopefully more innovative, and maybe what we can do is lead the way and get government to support. Also, government has to play to a different political agenda. So if you take the Middle East conflict, they will have positions that are important to them politically. They're thinking about the votes. Most CEOs can kind of do their own thing when it comes to making their minds up about particular issues. They're not driven in the way that people who lead communities or who lead governments are. So I think we do have a particularly important role, but we shouldn't ignore the support and help that we can get from government.
Well, Maurice, thanks very much for joining us here to talk about some of the biggest issues that are being talked about at Davos this year. It's been a real pleasure.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm Manveen Rana.